Hey Lions fans, I'm Vincent Menino. I'm going to host the Lion Digital Network Coaches Show this year. As school starts, we wanted to release a coaches show with all of our coaches here at Freed-Hardeman, recapping last year and looking ahead to this year. We hope you enjoy. Welcome back to the Coaches Show. We're here today with cross country and track and field coach Derrick Spradlin. And Coach, welcome. I want to start off here, try to introduce track and field, cross country to different people, see how to our fans, to see how, let you have an opportunity to explain how some different things work. So I know in the past few years we've had a few cross country and a few track athletes qualify for the national tournament, the national meet. Explain for everybody how that happens in your sport.
Okay. Well, cross country, we're talking about two sports. So cross country is in the fall and track and field is in the spring. For cross country, you qualify for nationals by performing well at the conference championship.
Okay.
So at the end of the cross-country season, this is normally the very beginning of November, all the conference schools have a cross-country meet, and the winning team goes to nationals as a team, and then based on how many schools are in your conference, a certain number of individuals go. So for this coming fall, the top team will go, and then the next four individuals, the top four individuals who finish who are not on the winning team, go to nationals. So very often you'll have an individual who wins the race whose team doesn't qualify for nationals or something like that. Or you have an individual who wins the race, but another team wins the conference team championship. And so it's really interesting. You're watching kind of for two winners. You're watching for the individual winner and the team.
Explain the team score to everybody too. How do they factor in the cross-country teams? How do you win the conference championship?
Okay, so you can run, some races might limit the number of participants per team to 7 or 10. Some don't limit it at all.
Okay.
Regardless of how many people on your team run the race, the top 5 score.
From your team?
From each team. The top 5 runners on each team score points. And the low score wins, like in golf. So, and the way you score it is pretty easy. So the person who comes in first place gets 1 point.
Got it.
The person who comes in second place gets 2 points, and so forth until if you have 200 runners running the race, the person who comes in 200th gets 200 points in theory. And so you add up the points of your top 5 runners, each team's top 5 runners, and the lowest score wins.
So the easiest way to understand that, if you went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that would be the lowest score any team could get.
Yes.
Okay.
So if you get 15 points, you've done very well as a
Okay.
team. And so sometimes in very competitive, large races where you have a lot of teams, and the front pack is full of people from many different schools, the winning score could be really high.
Right.
Because you have, in the top 25, you might have, 20 different teams represented, and just kind of extend it out going back until the 5th person on each team finishes. So the scoring at national championships, or scoring at conference, or really any meet, sometimes it's all computerized now, but sometimes it can still take a little while to get the final score, because you have so many people crossing the finish line, and even sometimes it's you have cameras at the finish line, but sometimes it confuses even the computers and the cameras to figure out if you got 10 guys crossing the line at the same time. And so of course back in the day, back at prehistoric era, when I used to run in college, when there were no computers, it was everybody got like a little card saying your place number. You had to give it to the officials, and then they would add it up by hand. So scoring, it's also very hard on the coach's part to keep up with the score during a race, because if it's a large race, especially because there's so many people out there, and you lose track of what place all these different runners are in. So you just kind of get a feel for it. Like, this team's looking like they're really good, because I see a lot of their runners at the front. And so it can be very, I don't want to say frustrating. It's just, it's part of the sport, is to sometimes have a big question mark.
There's anxiety at the end, and it's this unknown.
Yeah, you don't know exactly who's finishing. Now at nationals, they have little electronic mats often enough on the course, and you have a little computer chip on your shoe or on your uniform that records your time, but it records your place. So at nationals, they'll have a board near the finish line that will update standings.
Constantly. Okay.
Yeah. So that's better than not knowing anything. So it can be a little bit chaotic. Our conference obviously is not the size. Our conference championship is not the size of the national championship race, so it's a little bit easier to keep track of, which teams, are scoring low just based on the number of runners they have towards the front of the race.
Okay. No, track and field is different for qualifying for national championships.
Track and field is very different. So whereas cross country, it all depends on the conference championship race. In outdoor track and field, you can qualify at any point during the season if you hit a certain time in your event or a certain mark if you're a thrower or a jumper.
Do you always know what that time is?
Yes, they publish that before the season. They adjust it year to year based on how many, they're trying to get a certain number of people at nationals.
Okay.
So you can look at, in the NAIA, the top, you can look at all the times, in any event. So take the 400-meter race, you can look and see here the top 50 runners in the 400-meter race. We don't want 50 at nationals. We want, 24.
We also don't want 3 at nationals either. You want to have
right.
Want to have a race.
Yeah, you don't want to make it so competitive that
you're
not going to have anyone there. Yeah, so you're trying to get about 20 to 24 or more runners. So you just look at the times from the previous couple years and you figure out what your cutoff time ought to be. And so if you hit that, you can hit that time at the first track meet of the season in March. If you hit that time, you're going to nationals in May, regardless of how you do the rest of the year. And so the conference championship is simply for kind of bragging rights. And you can qualify for nationals at conference the same way if you hit a certain time. But how you place at the conference championship has no bearing on nationals in track and field.
And in track and field, there's no, my whole team went to nationals.
Right. You don't qualify as a team. You still have a team championship at nationals, but you have to have a lot of individuals qualify individually, and then you get your team score. And so in track, you don't want the low score, you want a high score, unlike cross country. And so, you get points based on if you place, first through eighth.
Okay.
And so the high score wins. So yes, so at national championships, if you qualify, 20, women from, during the year, and so you have 20 of your women at national championships, you've got a lot of competitors at nationals. Whereas if you have one girl qualify, you're probably not going to win the team title because she's just not going to be able to generate enough points in the one event that girl's in. So it obviously is the goal to qualify as many as you can. And so like in cross country, you have individual champions. In track, you do the same thing. So you have, for each event, the 100, the 200, the 400, the 5K, long jump, high jump, everything. You have, the top 3 in each event, get an award, and then you add up all the scores and you have a team award also. So just in both cross country and track, you have individual, you're competing for individual titles, and you're competing for a team title.
Okay. And this same scoring system for both of those would be at regular season meets throughout the year too.
Yeah, a lot of track meets don't do team scores.
Okay.
Simply because they're there, early season meets, and people are trying to get their times down, maybe going for a qualifying time or something like that. So a lot of meets don't even bother doing team scores, which I know for a lot of sports that seems crazy. So you go to a meet and no team walks away the winner, and yes, that is the case. It happens a lot. You're just going there to compete individually. That's just the nature of it.
And but it changes your coaching tactics too. If someone qualifies for the national tournament in March, early in the season, you might not want them to exhaust themselves at the conference tournament just a few weeks before the national meet.
Yeah, and that's, even at the most elite levels of running, and certainly at all levels of collegiate running, there's coaching-wise, there's always a fine line you're walking between, competing too much so that somebody is not ready for either your conference race or the nationals, and then not competing enough, trying to rest them too much, and then they're flat, or they just don't have, kind of the season experience to race well. But yeah, very much. Once somebody qualifies for nationals, once that's in the bag, for track, then it's like, okay, we got the rest of the season to just, try to refine how well you're doing in that event, and
you're building a whole training program around that being the best at that time in May there.
Yeah, and of course. For cross country, everyone's trying to be at their best at the very end of the season.
Right.
Everybody from every team, because that's how you qualify for nationals. In track, you have to qualify sometime during the year. So obviously, most people qualify as you get further and further into the season because you're getting more and more in shape. But with all the different events, sprints and throws and jumps and long distance and mid distance, for track, there's lots of different kind of training strategies for how you're trying to get people to peak at some point, do well enough to qualify for nationals, and then to also be able to compete well at conference and then at nationals if they've qualified for it. So it's a lot to juggle. It's kind of a, I guess, slightly unique aspect of track and field, but it's the way it is.
Well, tell us about Freed-Hardeman's team. I know our fans hear a lot about new individual records, school records that we've broken or passed in the last few years. Where are we at in terms of for cross country and track as far as competing nationally on the national level?
Yeah, so we started cross country, this iteration of the team in 2009. There had been cross country at Freed-Hardeman several times in the past, for periods of time, then it ended. And then we started track, I'll say 2016 or 17. It's a date I should know. 2016 or 17 we started track. And so we're new enough, and the team has grown, track especially. We've really kind of grown and gotten better. That in the past couple of years we've had a lot of success with our own program, and some success at the conference level and even at nationals. But yeah, I anticipate us hopefully breaking a lot of school records in track, in the next several years, because the program's new enough that if we're growing and if we're able to develop the runners we have better, and if we're able to recruit better runners, then some of those records should go down, just because the program hasn't been around for 100 years, and there's some shot put record from the 1960s that nobody's ever going to touch or something. We don't have that yet. Maybe we're setting some of those now, but cross country the same way. We've really improved a lot cross country wise over the past several years as far as the team scores and things like that go. So yes, that's been fun to watch. Kind of watch the program mature. I've learned a lot. Maybe it's taking me too long to learn some of the coaching things I've learned. That we're now at the point where we're having a lot of those team records to be broken, and people do pretty well individually here in the past couple of years. So I anticipate that continuing. I hope it does, if I'm doing my job.
All right, well, we've finished up with everybody with a fun little game. I'm going to put 1 minute on the clock, and you're going to have to try to name as many NAIA schools as you can that are not in the that are not in the Mid-South Conference.
Can I say another oddity of our sport in both cross country and track is that we do not compete just against the NAIA.
Okay. Yeah.
We compete against NCAA Division 1, 2, and 3, and NAIA.
Yeah.
At all of our, well, not, you have some races that are just one or the other, but.
Well, but you're trying to travel, for example, I think you go to Austin Peay for a track meet every year, right? Yeah. And that's sort of a close travel. There's other NAIA schools there, but there are also NCAA Division 1 schools there.
Yeah, we had about 7 or 8, 9 athletes compete at Vanderbilt's track meet this year. So we go to meets that are, Western Kentucky, or Hendricks is D3. We went out to Harding this past year, they're D2. So that's again the nature of the sport, is that you're competing against schools not just from the NAIA, and so especially at cross country meets, there may be a lot of teams there. So that's my excuse for
that's your justification
losing this competition, because I'm just going to start throwing out.
Are we ready?
Sure.
Go.
All right. So MOBAP, Columbia, Park, Lyon, Williams Baptist, William Woods, Hannibal LaGrange, Harris Stowe. I think that's all the old American Midwest. So then we had, the Trans-South. We had Bethel, Blue Mountain. UT Southern was Martin Methodist. So then we have Tougaloo, you got Wiley, Asbury, Point, Milligan, Lee's not anymore. Washita Baptist? Are they NAIA? We run against them a lot. Who's in Owensboro? Kentucky Wesleyan and Berea, not Berea. Oh man, I'm already doing that.
We'll post the standings of all the coaches there. So
I'm even right now remembering more. Like they're coming in my head.
thank you very much for doing this. We really appreciate it. Hey Lions fans, if you like this video, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, toggle that notifications bell to all so you don't miss any new videos. Remember, you can always see all of our updates and news at gofhulions.com, and also remember to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.